Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Pastor Frank E. Leggett III, and I want to thank you for joining us here at America at the Crossroad. And so, our topic today is the psychology of MAGA. The psychology of MAGA. Now, when the January 6th riot and insurrection took place, I knew then and there that Trump would be implicated and his political career would be over, and we would be rid of another Trump run forever. Because of this, check this out. And so, this is the coup d'etat in broad daylight that the then President Trump instigated, fomented, and encouraged. And because of his involvement, I just knew that any presidential run thereafter was a done deal. It would never happen again. And then when Trump was impeached the second time, I knew that if convicted for his role of instigating and fomenting a riot against the US government, I knew that he would never be able to run again, and we'd never have to deal with him in a presidential campaign ever again. I just knew it. And when the January 6th committee commenced with Republicans Liz Cheney of Wyoming and Adam Kinzinger from Illinois participating in the proceedings with the incredible testimonies from Trump's staff, including Cassidy Hutchinson, Olivia Troy, Alyssa Griffin, as well as other Republicans from across the U.S. like Brad Raffensperger, who is Secretary of State from Georgia, and Rusty Bowers from Arizona. And so, with a mountain of evidence that was presented that pointed directly to Donald Trump as the fomenter in chief behind the insurrection, I was convinced that Trump would be indicted and convicted, and we would be rid of a Trump candidacy ever again. And then when Alvin Bragg, the district attorney for the Southern District of New York, charged him and then convicted him of 34 felony counts of campaign finance, I was convinced that that was a wrap and that we would never have to deal with a Trump candidacy ever again. Now, not necessarily in this order, but when Trump was indicted for the January 6th coup d'etat and for possession of top secret documents after having refused to return them, only for the feds to raid his home and discover that not only had he not returned them, but he lied because he moved them from one place to another and yet told the feds that he had returned everything. I was convinced that we were done with him on a presidential level. And then Trump was successful at appealing the cases, which kept them from being tried before the election on November 5. And for the first time in a while, I was no longer confident when I realized that none of those trials were going to take place prior to the election. I was no longer confident that he would ever face justice. And so now I am forced to admit that when President Biden dropped out of the race and Kamala Harris became the Democratic nominee that Sunday in July, and starting that Sunday night, that very Sunday night, when he dropped out and recommended her, and she accepted the mantle that night when it was announced that black women for Kamala and black men for Kamala and Republicans for Kamala and gay men for Kamala had Zoom meetings starting that night and throughout that first week. And because of those Zoom meetings that had tens of thousands of people on them, and they donated crazy sums of money. I believe she took in $100 million in that very first week, starting from that Sunday. I was energized with the hope that Trump would be defeated at the ballot box and we'd never again have to face a Donald Trump candidacy. And then, when the Democratic National Convention was held in Chicago, and it was so positive and the vibe was so incredible, I was convinced that Kamala was going to put significant distance between her and Trump. And then the debate took place in September, and she punked him in that debate. And she did what no one else had done since he came down the golden escalator 9 years ago in 2015. She verbally punched him in the face and took his lunch money. Immediately, and I do mean immediately, he realized that he had gotten his butt kicked and he lost that debate because he came back out and did what he always does. And he had never done this on any of his debates previously. He never came back out to the room and talked to the reporters. He had never done that before, but he realized that he had lost that debate. So he comes back to the room and he gaslit the public and declared that that was his best debate yet. He hinted at the fact that he probably wouldn't debate her again because why would he do so after he debated her so soundly? Lies. But notwithstanding his lies, everyone, including Fox News, acknowledged that he had been bullied and punched in his chops. As a result of that great debate experience, I was convinced that there would be a significant bump in her ratings that would put more distance between her and him. I was hopeful after his awful performance that more Republicans would join Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and hundreds of other Republicans, and they would endorse Kamala, namely George Walker Bush, who has been silent to this day in late October. And when it didn't happen, when she didn't get a significant bump after that, when the race in fact tightened and has remained tight, notwithstanding that Trump at his rally in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, a week or so ago, in the hometown of the all-time great Arnold Palmer, the all-time great golfer, Trump literally made reference to the size of Arnold Palmer's penis. What in the world? And he has the nerve to refer to Kamala as low IQ? Ladies and gentlemen, you can't make this stuff up. You just can't. Millions believe that he is the most inappropriate, the most offensive, and the most divisive presidential candidate in the history of these United States of America. And yet, his MAGA base is literally ready and willing to fight and die for him. So for MAGA, not voting for him is not even a thought. A guest on a certain network this week asked a question that I've been asking for months. He asked, what is wrong with America that this race is still tied? How? You see, Kamala wants to unite America and is doing so by inviting Republicans like Cheney and Kinzinger to join her campaign. There is actually a group called Republicans for Harris, for Kamala. Dick Cheney has endorsed Kamala. She has literally gone on television. She went on The View and said the difference between her and Joe Biden, who has had a historic presidency in terms of the things that he's accomplished. And just this morning, the Wall Street Journal says whoever assumes the presidency January 20th is going to assume a historic economy. And so Kamala is building a broad coalition of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. It's a broad tent, and she's inviting everybody to it. But Trump, on the other hand, is divisive. Just listen to his rallies. He comes across as if he hates America. He's always trashing America and gaslighting MAGA when the truth is the exact opposite. We have an historic economy, a booming economy. Historic numbers of jobs, 16 million jobs in less than 4 years. Gas prices coming down. Inflation is not where we'd like it to be, but it's lower than where it was when Biden and Harris took office 4 years ago. It's lower than where it was. And yet, Trump's only shot at the White House is to scare white voters into believing his lies about Black and brown people. That's his one shot at winning the presidency. And that's all he harps on. Fear and fear-mongering about Black and brown people. He never denigrates white people, ever. And even at his rally at Madison Square Garden this past Sunday, a comedian got up and trashed Puerto Rico and referred to them as garbage. And nobody at that rally, including Donald Trump, checked him or disagreed with him and called that comedian on the carpet and said, Puerto Rico is not trash and garbage. Nobody at that rally responded appropriately. So Kamala is going to focus on building up the middle class with a $50,000 tax break for business owners. She's going to provide a $6,000 child tax credit for families with newborns. There will be Medicare coverage for individuals who take care of their family members, like I had to take care of my sick and dying mother who ultimately died. The only thing that Trump did 4 years ago was to give a tax break to billionaires who don't need it. That's it. Trump does not care about any of his MAGA constituents. MAGA, Trump does not care about any one of you. How can I say that? Listen to this video and the words that came out of his mouth at a rally in Georgia. Check this out.
Breeze nice? Do you feel the breeze? Because I don't want anybody going on me. We need every voter. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care.
Did you hear that? MAGA, I'm appealing to you. Apparently it was very hot. You said, you feel that breeze? Look, I don't want any of y'all leaving. I just want you to vote for me. Because I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care. Can I ask you a question? How in the world can you vote and support a man who says, I don't care about you? I just want your vote. I couldn't care less about you. And do you know what that means? It means that his presidency will not be about you. It will be about him and his rich buddies. It's not about you. It has never been about you. It doesn't get any clearer than that. What is wrong with you? That you could hear that and not be turned off by it. That it goes in one ear and out the other. What is the problem? So, ladies and gentlemen, the question I'm going to address in this podcast today is this. The reasons why MAGA Republicans are such diehard supporters of Trump, notwithstanding his many convictions, his threats to democracy, and his many flaws. The reasons why they are still diehard supporters. And to understand the relationship and those who support, defend, and will commit crimes for him, notwithstanding what he says or does, is you must understand the psychology of MAGA. You must understand the mindset of MAGA. So here we go. My one point is this. The reason why MAGA and Trump supporters support Trump no matter what he says or does is because Trump says the quiet thing out loud. Let me take you back to the Obama administration. When Obama was elected, there were many in America who wrongly concluded that because a black man had been elected to the highest office in the land, it proved beyond a reasonable doubt that America had become a post-racial society. And some actually believed that we had moved past the point where race mattered in this country. It was a foolish notion then. It is obviously a foolish notion now. Here's why. When Obama was elected president, November 2008, Republicans were outraged. And the very day after the election, Newt Gingrich gathered his Republicans and they met at a restaurant in DC to plan their strategy to make sure that they oppose all of his legislation and to ensure that by opposing all of his legislation that he would end up being a one-term president. And for many white Americans, it was a bridge too far. A black man in the White House. But but because the country seemed to be accommodating the notion that the presidency was no longer exclusively for white men, those individuals that had anger in their eyes over the fact that this ceiling had been broken, and this trend of white presidents exclusively had come to an end with the election of a black man. Those individuals who were mad and angry and incensed at the notion that a black man was the most powerful person, not only in this country, but in the world. And so they, along with haters, had to go underground with their vitriol. Overt racism was no longer in vogue. America had just elected its first black president. America obviously was evolving. This American experience had taken one huge leap in the direction of its ideal that all men are created equal and are endowed with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And for all practical intents and purposes, it looked as if after all these years, America was about to live up to its ideal of becoming a more perfect union. A union that had no place for racism, bigotry, misogyny, xenophobia, and the like. But for many white Americans, particularly Republican white Americans, they felt like they were losing their country. They felt like they were losing what had been exclusively theirs. They felt like it was slipping away from them, and that notion was both unsettling and unacceptable to them. And to add injury to insult, when Obama was elected for a second term, November 2012, they had to endure not one term and not 4 years, but 2 terms and 12 years of an administration led by a black man that they didn't want to experience for not even 8 minutes, let alone 8 years. So they went underground in a couple of ways. They kept their racist thoughts and feelings to themselves for the most part, or they only shared them with people who were like-minded and thought like they did. Or worse yet, being convinced that they had to wage a civil war to get their country back, many white conservatives joined hate groups and militias and prepared for a civil war that they were convinced was coming. And all the while, the hate temperature of America was rising, even though it was rising imperceptibly. While many people actually were believing that we had reached a post-racial America. And then it happened. Donald Trump came down the escalator to declare his candidacy for the presidency of the United States of America, and he threw his hat into the proverbial Republican ring. And he came down that escalator and he gave that speech, and it was the first time that we had heard such hateful rhetoric. He threw Mexicans under the bus. He said they're rapers and muggers and thieves, and they're coming across the borders. He said they're not sending America their best. And it was the moment that millions of Americans had been waiting for. They had been waiting for a champion, a white champion, someone who thought like them, someone who would fight like them. More importantly, Trump was someone that sounded like them. And so the second reason why MAGA Republicans are such diehard supporters of Trump, notwithstanding his many convictions, his threats to overthrow a peaceful transfer of power, and the multitude of his flaws, is point number two. Donald Trump gave MAGA the permission structure to be hateful, bigoted, and racist because he is hateful, bigoted, and racist. MAGA Republicans have latched onto Donald Trump with a pit bull-like grip because he thinks the way many MAGA supporters think. Donald Trump is their savior, as flawed as he is, and they know he's flawed. None of them want their children. No MAGA supporters want their children to be anything like him. When they've been surveyed and they've been asked the questions, do you want your sons to be like Donald Trump? The answer is always no. They know that he does not motivate nor inspire people to be better than they are. They don't care about any of that. The one thing they do care about is this: Trump permits them to be their worst selves. They follow him because they are convinced that he alone will restore America to the only vision that is acceptable to them, and that is an America where white people rule and dominate and are in complete control. That version of America will revert back to a time, to an era long gone. It would be America, an America where black and brown people are put back in their places and are subservient to whites yet again. That is the one and only America that they want to consider. In their estimation, no other Republican candidate can deliver that America but Trump. No other candidate is mean enough or hateful enough or divisive enough to make America great again, which is nothing more than a dog whistle to make America racist and segregated again. No one can out-Trump Trump for them. Not Ron DeSantis, not Nikita Haley, not Jim Jordan, not Josh Hawley, not Matt Gaetz, not Mo Brooks, none of them. Not Kevin McCarthy, not Mike Johnson, none of them. As far as MAGA is concerned, no one can do it like him. And more importantly, no one can do it but him. Consequently, Donald Trump is their one and only savior. They are convinced that their fate is directly connected to America's fate. They are convinced that if America continues to devolve into a post-racial society where minorities continue to make the advances that we have, then they believe that they will lose control of this country. And that is a fate that is completely unacceptable to MAGA, to white nationalists, as well as white supremacists. In fact, it is a notion that they are willing to fight and die to prevent and implement a coup d'etat for, to put it mildly. Trump is their last chance to hold on to the country that they are convinced belongs to them and them exclusively. If Trump loses, they know that they will lose. And they have no intention of losing the country that they are convinced belongs to them and them alone. So for the two reasons that I've explained, they are inexplicably tied to Trump. And that will never change. If Trump loses this election, better yet, when Trump loses this election, it is quite possible that civil war is inevitable. We are truly sitting on a veritable powder keg. And as I see it from MAGA, this is Custer's last stand. But unlike Custer, they have no intention of losing. Trump has concluded that his only chance of winning the election is that he must successfully divide America and split the vote. He's concluded that he must terrify his base into voting by using the most vile in voting for him, by using the most vile and offensive racist tropes. He's concluded that the path to victory is to turn MAGA against the rest of America. Therefore, MAGA and Republicans never condemn his hateful rhetoric. There's only one reason why: they endorse and condone it, because it is a means to their ends. But as Christians, we shouldn't be surprised that one half of the voting electorate has become hateful and bigoted. Check out this text and these texts from the book of Matthew, chapter 24. Verse 10 says, Christ gives this prophecy about what is going to transpire in the last days. He says, and many will turn away from me and betray and hate one another. Verse 12, sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. Verse 13, but the one who endures to the end and lives out, I'm paraphrasing now, and lives out godly and biblical principles of loving your brother as yourself will be saved, not the haters. So, where we are as a country should be no surprise to us at all, because prophecy has predicted that this phenomenon would take place and overwhelm America, as it has for the last 9 years since Donald Trump came down that escalator. And I'm afraid that it's going to get worse before it ever gets better. Therefore, we need to prepare ourselves, because this ride is about to get bumpy, especially if Trump wins this election. Because if he does, America will cease to be America when Project 2025 is rolled out and implemented by Trump and his allies. There will be no guardrails left in place like there were when he took office in 2017, and there were individuals who were faithful to the Constitution, who pushed back on many of the unconstitutional things that he wanted to do, but they prevented him from doing because they place country over party. But if he wins, he will remove all of those individuals. He will remove all of those guardrails and only will put individuals in office. That's what Project 25 is all about. Project 2025 is all about individuals who will be sycophants and cronies and who will do his bidding. They will put party over country. And there will be no one to put or keep Trump in check. Ladies and gentlemen, as I close, it is time to pray for America, because we truly are at the crossroad of a very stupendous decision that we are all going to make come Tuesday, November 5. Please be advised that we upload a new broadcast every Monday morning. And so, if you want to be alerted and notified when we upload those broadcasts, please help me build this channel. Help me get out this all important information by hitting the subscribe button. And if you appreciate this information, hit the like button and then share this link with someone who needs to be educated like I'm in the process of educating you. I would greatly appreciate it. I want to thank my incredible producer, Lorraine. I love and I thank you for all you do. So, ladies and gentlemen, be blessed. I'll see you next time.